Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Fred Schmidt. I'm going to talk very fast about the 2024 presidential election. An election that's been said to be not only the most consequential, but the closest election in recent American history. I've been losing my hair. First of all, I'm going to talk about state categorization. First of all, I'll talk about safe states. These are states in which both candidates not only expect, but will win this election. Harris, she's going to win California. She's going to win New York. Trump's going to win Missouri and Montana and Wyoming. Some of these states, such as Missouri and Colorado, former swing states, have now transitioned to being full safe states. Likely states: Alaska, Texas, Iowa, Ohio for President Trump, New Mexico, New Hampshire, and Maine for Vice President Harris. States that both candidates expect to win, and unless there is a complete landslide in this election, which I don't think there will be, the candidates will win these states. Thirdly, lean states, states with probably within 3 to 7% of the electorate for Vice President Harris. Minnesota and Virginia. Remember I said she might win this by anywhere from 3 to 7 points. And then Florida for President Trump. Again, a former swing state has now turned to a lean state for Trump. Let's get into the swing states. There's 7 of them. Starting in the west, we got Nevada and Arizona. And in the east, we have Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. I'll get more into them later. Firstly, I want to talk about President Trump's path to victory in this election. If he wants to win, he needs to get a sweep of these 3 states. Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona states are called the Sun Belt states. If he can win all 3 of these, 95% chance that he'll win the election. If you just input the fact that he will win these 3 states. If he loses just 1, down to 54, loses 2, drops him catastrophically to 7%, and without any of them, he won't win the election. And that's almost mathematically true. This won't get him 270, however. How will he get there? He needs to pick off one of these 3 states: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These, remember, the northern states, which we call the Rust Belt states. He just needs to pick off one of these 3 states in which President Joe Biden won in 2020. Pick off one of them, election will be his. Kamala Harris's path to victory, very straightforward for the Democrats. They need to win Michigan and Wisconsin. If she wins them, 91%. Loses just 1, goes on to 29. She loses both of them. It's, not technically impossible, but mostly impossible for her to win the election, because these are the most left-leaning states. If she loses these, she has no chance anywhere else. All she needs to do, if she wins these 2, all she needs to do is win Pennsylvania. That'll get her to exactly 270 electoral votes. She'll be the 47th president of the United States. If she wins these 2, loses Pennsylvania, she needs to pick off one of these 3. Remember, these 2 we called the Sun Belt states that Trump needed to win. She can pick off one of these 2 and then add that to Nevada. That'll push her past 270. And as I said, she'll be the 47th president of the United States. Next, I want to get into the 3 key demographics that will win this election for either candidate. First, both candidates want to gain support among Latinos. Harris is down, according to a recent poll, down 7 points from Obama's 2012 number of 71%. Trump has made a lot of gains. He's made a lot of gains among minorities, Latinos especially. A gain of 7 points there for President Trump. Well, what does that matter? It's just 7 points. Nationally, that's 50% of the population. And in 2 key battleground states in the West, Nevada and Arizona, 24, 27%. Huge numbers. That's a quarter of the population. And if Trump can make up 7 points, that'll be great news for him. Well, what does that matter across the course of an election? 2012, Obama won Florida, and he won the Latino vote by 24 points. Huge victory for President Obama. In 2020, Biden, he not only lost Florida, he lost Florida by a decent amount, and he only won the Latino vote by 7 points. That means such a huge impact across the whole state. It shifted from not only not being a swing state, but to lean for President Trump. Can Harris, and second key, can Harris grow support among non-college educated voters? She's losing 30% according to a recent poll. But this is a group that turned out in droves to vote last election and actually Biden won this by over his expected margin, which is why he was able to win these 3 key states. The blue wall. Remember, if Harris wins these 3, she wins the election. That is almost half of the population who's non-college educated whites. Only 38% nationally, 49% in Wisconsin. Remember, 40% in Pennsylvania, the most consequential state in this election. If she can gain points there, it'll be great news for her. Third key is making gains with black voters. If you see, in 2012, Obama won this by huge margins. 92% of the vote went for him, and Romney only won 6%. According to a recent poll from Morning Consult, Trump is up to 16% among black voters. Harris is down 12 points. That is more than triple. But again, Trump still down, huge. But making up those points can lead to huge ramifications in the course of an election. A group that only makes up 12.5% of the national population, but 31% of Georgia, 21% of North Carolina. One key part of Georgia we want to look at real quick is Metro Atlanta, right about here on the state. A state that turned out in droves, heavily minority, heavily black population, turned out in droves to vote for Joe Biden, and he won this state by only 10,000 votes. So imagine just a point, and how huge of a ramification that can have in such a big state like Georgia. Lastly, I'm going to run through the 7 key swing states as fast as I can. Arizona, former Republican stronghold. Joe Biden won that. I believe it was the first time in 40 years a Democrat won Arizona. Things aren't looking good for Harris right here. Down 2.5 points. And this is expected to be the most Republican state, I believe, in my opinion, the most Republican state of the 7 key swing states. And it will lean for President Trump. Next, Georgia. Remember, former Republican stronghold, 5 points. That's huge in a swing state. 5 points. Biden won that. He won the state of Georgia by 10,000 votes. Remember, 10,000 and some votes. Polls aren't looking good for Vice President Harris. Polls aren't looking good. Early polling data, however, is looking phenomenal for Harris in Georgia. They shattered, almost tripled the amount of first-day ballots cast in early voting, and heavily minority votes turning out in droves for Harris. 2 things: high voter turnout, high women turnout, and high minority turnout. 3 things that are phenomenal for Democrats in any state. Although polls don't show it, this will be a close election in Georgia. Believe it. Finally, Michigan. Trump won by 10,000 votes in 2016. Biden won by a pretty decent margin, almost 3 points. Polls show this very close. This has been a very fluctuating state throughout the election, the most of any of the 7 swing states. Harris was up by almost 3 points post-debate, about down 1 point early October. Now she's back up to about 1 point. This will be the most Democratic state of the 7 key swing states. And early polling data has been about neutral, and polls have looked good for her. I believe this will be a lean Harris state. Next up, Nevada. The only state of the 7 which Hillary Clinton won in 2016 and Joe Biden won in 2020. Polls have been kind of flipped, and early polling data does not look very good, and recent polling data hasn't looked very good for Harris. A state in which she was projected to win it by about 3 points as of September. She's now been down in the polls, and remember, if the 0.1% is no kind of a lead in a election, especially if it's this close, well within the margin of error. This is going to be a toss-up state. I think it might lean for Trump. It's going to be a toss-up, though. North Carolina, the only 7 swing states in which Trump won last election, and he won it by about 1.5 points. And polls have been close. One little tidbit I'll throw in there. Mark Robinson, Republican running for governor, is expected to lose by about 20 points. Question that a lot of people are going to ask is how many people are going to vote cross-party lines? Republicans voting for Democrats. Will it be bad for Trump? We'll see. Pennsylvania is going to be the bellwether state. According to recent projections, 92% of the time, the winner of the presidency also wins Pennsylvania. And 40% of the time, it is the tipping point that pushes them over 270. Polls have been astronomically close. Biden won this state in 2020, but polls have been really close. Recent polls, and it doesn't reflect it in the polling average, recent polls have been very favorable for Kamala Harris. And early voting numbers also look really good for Vice President Harris. Democrats have been turning out in droves. 54% of the voters who've turned out for early voting have been women. I think Kamala Harris will win Pennsylvania. It is going to be astronomically close, though. Last one, Wisconsin state, in which it has been unfathomably close. Every election since 2016. And polls have shown it to be even closer than it's ever been before. One of the 3 blue wall states for Harris. She needs to win, and it's going to be... That's the theme of today. It's going to be unfathomably close. To conclude, let's look at the state of the race. Remember, our 7 swing states. Just to recap, Trump needs to win these 3, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. Pick off one of the 3 blue wall states. He'll be at 270. Harris, if she keeps all of her likelies and leans, state of the race runs through Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. These 2 have been leaning for Harris. Remember, after Trump needs to pick off one of these 3, the state of the race will go through Pennsylvania. Because mathematically, that's just how it works. It has 19 electoral votes. That is how it's going to work. I haven't slept in 4 days, and this is what I got. Everyone vote.